Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for making time to attend our webinar today. We are going to be showing the Timesheet Boss, part of our Document Boss webinar series. My name's Christopher Claunch. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing. And rest assured, I won't go crazy with PowerPoint slides today. So I'm going to go ahead and start today with our agenda and how this is going to flow. And the great news is that this powerful tool is going to be shown very swiftly today. And the reason for that is because the tool's very intuitive. It's very easy to use. It is built for that purpose. Our goal here at IT-ROI is to make PPM simple because it can be complex and time-consuming. So you'll see that we move through this very swiftly. I'm going to go and talk a little bit about IT-ROI, give you just a brief background. I'm going to talk about the Timesheet Boss value, and because at IT-ROI we're always trying to just really deliver the value to the customer, and we've discovered that value through your feedback, you, the Clarity users. So to jump in and talk a little bit about IT-ROI, we started as a group of consultants that were doing PPM consulting, service desk, ITSM, and as we were working through Clarity in its early stages and even pre-Clarity, we began to notice that there were better ways to do things, and our technical workforce began to write scripts to get through their day. Now, one of the neat things about that is that ultimately, as those scripts became repeatable, we started to develop software solutions so that our team could do it better. Well, hence the customer began to ask for those types of software, and so as a result we built successful software tools, and we are where we are today. So some of the points that we try to focus on from a value perspective is that we always want to increase the user adoption of the tool, and both SharePoint and Clarity. And what that does is it brings costs down in some areas, but it also keeps the executive management happy, because that feedback that we get from the executives, the executive VPs, the CIOs, we need to get better utilization and better return on invested dollar out of our Clarity implementation. And so it's tough to really measure per se, but it has been very, very important to enterprises. We also enable both the team within the Clarity environment and those people that are getting visibility via SharePoint or Excel or whatever we happen to be using. We're delivering a familiar UI. They've been used to working for a very long time, and that gives them comfort, especially when you start again to get into the executive management, where some of those people aren't necessarily as technical. We felt by giving any user, whether they be a temporary employee, a contractor, somebody outside of the PMO, visibility into the timesheets, give them the ability to adjust the timesheets, that would be a big value add. So what we're going to do is I just want to kind of do a quick bio. Federico Pena is, we have the pleasure of having him present today. He's the chief architect, the founder of the company. He was the vision behind the tools. He headed our team of Clarity experts and SharePoint experts in developing this. And what this is one of the components within the Document Boss suite. This is the last of the 3 webinars in the suite. We'll provide a link for you to go ahead and take a look at those other recordings. All the questions and answers will be in there, so that you can go back and check that out. And I'm going to prepare you up front. This demo is going to be very swift, like I said in the beginning. So Federico, if you're feeling confident that you can deliver this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and turn the controls over to you, and I'll just be here to answer questions and facilitate going through. You all ready?
Yeah, ready. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for, and I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar. As Christopher said, today's particular webinar is going to be relatively short, and basically what we're going to show is how we can actually create a view inside of SharePoint to allow end users to enter their time inside of SharePoint and automatically update Clarity. And what this does is this provides a couple of different options. Number one is, as some of you may know, Clarity can be a daunting tool, being so large and being so complex that some people find it a little intimidating to log into it and actually enter their stuff. So what we try to do is provide a nice end user interface that allows end users to be able to have some familiarity to tools or existing tools that they're currently using. With this being said, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get right into the demo to start. So I'm just going to log into a browser. In this particular browser, what we've got is, Clarity. We've got a project list. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open a project that I created a few minutes ago. Okay, and this particular project is actually already associated to SharePoint. So when I click on the SharePoint tab, it automatically already maps to my particular SharePoint site that I want to be on. Okay, and you notice here we've got several different links. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this SharePoint directly. So we can actually see the view that an end user would see as they're going through SharePoint to actually manipulate their data inside of Clarity. Okay, so here we basically have our timesheet link. Okay, I'm going to click on this timesheet link for a second here, and this gives me basically all of the resources that I have rights to see inside of Clarity. Right, I can filter the same way that I can with inside of Clarity. Provide it automatically filters to the current time period. I'm actually going to go back a time period here and filter since this one already has time on it for myself. Okay, and when I click on the time entry, this basically duplicates the same type of functionality that Clarity has in their timesheet. So if we come here, you can actually see that this timesheet is actually the same type of timesheet that we've got inside of SharePoint. Okay. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come back to this particular project, but I'm going to create a couple of tasks and assign myself to those tasks so I can actually enter time against these. So I'm just going to say, and we've got the task created here, and obviously if we came back into Clarity and we went to our tasks, we can actually see how these tasks actually show up inside of Clarity. So these are tasks 1, 2, and 3 that we've just created. And then I'm going to come back to SharePoint and I'm going to assign myself to these particular tasks. And now that I'm assigned to these particular tasks, I can actually go into Clarity and I go into my particular timesheet and actually add time against this. So I'm going to come into my particular time entry, and I'm going to say add task. And actually, I'm going to go back here because I was actually in the wrong timesheet here. I want to do last week's timesheet. So I'm going to add tasks to this particular timesheet. And we're going to look for the particular project that we've been. So this is the actual project that we had, and we've got tasks 1, 2, and 3 that we've just created. So I'm just going to click on these particular 3 tasks here. I'm going to say add. Okay. And as I mentioned before, so what we did is we actually just provided a view in SharePoint to Clarity. So if I come back into Clarity and I refresh this particular timesheet now has those 3 tasks. And notice the similarity between these. We have the ability to add notes either to the actual task or to the timesheet itself. So we've got the same ability here to either add notes here or we can add notes at the timesheet level. So here I can actually come and say I want to enter, time for these 2 tasks. And when I click Save on here, like I said, everything that we're doing inside of SharePoint is literally just a view that's happening inside of Clarity. So if I come back into my Clarity and I refresh my Clarity screen, okay, I can see that those particular hours have been entered here. And I can actually come into Clarity and say, I didn't actually have access to SharePoint, so I wanted to update my timesheet directly from Clarity. So I can come here and I can say, all right, I want to save my timesheet from here. And once I come back into SharePoint, if I refresh this particular screen, we can actually see that same time come in through directly into SharePoint. So what this provides is it provides a user-friendly interface for people to actually enter time with an interface that they're actually very familiar with. You know, and we have the exact same functionality in here. We can add tasks, add incidents, new roles, split on, delete particular tasks. You can submit them for approval if you click populate. The exact same rules that apply within Clarity actually apply to this particular timesheet. So, you know, and obviously these particular view is what's called a SharePoint web part. And SharePoint web parts are completely editable, okay? So this gives you the ability to come back to these particular timesheets and actually manipulate the way your particular timesheet views are, okay? So everything that's associated and you can do with inside of SharePoint, you can come here. So you can add input types, codes, charge codes. So any way that your particular Clarity timesheet is set up, it can actually be set up identically the same way with inside of this particular tool. So what I want to do is I actually want to spend a couple of seconds and see if anyone has any questions regarding how this particular functionality works, and then we might be able to actually clarify some matters for people as need be. So Christopher?
Excellent, Federico. I've got some the dial-in folks that have asked some questions. It doesn't look like there's any from the panel in the wait. Great question, Lowell. I always like to answer the ones that pop up on the screen first, and so I'm going to go straight to Lowell's question, and that is, how fast is the bidirectional communication, Federico?
We utilize the Clarity API for this. So obviously, latency does depend on how far these servers are from each other and so on. But they're pretty instant. So if I come here and I actually manipulate this, so I'm going to show you the speed of how this happens. If I click, you know, if I come back here and I say, I want to do 9 here, and I click save. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's updated. So as soon as this stops spinning, it's actually saving it directly inside of Clarity. So obviously these aren't the most efficient servers that we've got for these particular demos, but I would say that we've never had a problem with any clients, and we've had clients that have, you know, 5,000 users entering time inside of Clarity at the same time. So I would say pretty quick.
All righty. Fed, I've got a question here. Interesting question. I don't think we've gotten this one before. It says, can you outline the timeline for the BOSS products? More specifically, the timesheet component. How long is it to implement in the Clarity environment?
So as far as Clarity is concerned, the actual implementation is very straightforward. We utilize, to extract the data into SharePoint, we utilize the Query API. And we've got all of the queries and all the necessary queries already pre-built into particular Zog files that we can actually load. So as far as Clarity is concerned, the installation is about half an hour. And as far as on the SharePoint side, we do have to create a custom web solution inside of SharePoint, but that's also, you know, it's an installation file that's a next. Most of our installations are between 1 and 2 hours.
Wow,
so
excellent.
Relatively quick. Of course, you know, we do have the issue of, you know, when you go to a client site, there is the red tape. You know, we do need to make sure that we've got the right credentials to access all of the information that we need as needed.
So provided we have everything up front.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Lowell, I wonder if you cut your teeth in the network world. Lowell has another question. What are the server requirements for number of users? And the example he uses is the one that CA recommends for 1,500 users. You have that dedicated server for Clarity. So
as far as server requirements are concerned, obviously I'll start off with versioning. We only support Clarity 12 and higher, and SharePoint 2010 and higher. But as far as communication happens between Clarity and SharePoint, really it would be, as far as your Clarity server is concerned, it would be the exact same system that you would need inside of your Clarity, because utilizing the API isn't any more overhead than actually entering the time directly through the UI. And as far as SharePoint, obviously that would depend on the particular SharePoint farm that you've got and how many particular SharePoint users and what you're actually using that SharePoint solution for. Because all we are doing here is we're basically creating SharePoint lists that read and write data directly from Clarity. So you aren't going to need any more horsepower than you currently have for your current user base.
okay, thanks Federico for that. So if the employee or the contractor are entering time only from SharePoint, do they need to be do they need to be a licensed user in Clarity? And I actually got that question from the telephone group too, so that's a good one.
So no, the short answer is no, they do not need to be a licensed user. They do need to be a resource inside of Clarity, okay, and they need to be assigned to a project. But it would be, this would be the same like if you had a, an SAP integration into Clarity. You don't necessarily need to be licensed users to feed timesheet data into Clarity. We only require one license to communicate between the two products, and that would be whatever integration admin or whatever it may be, right? And we feed the rights, from the particular SharePoint site to Clarity, but that particular user can be locked. Our API doesn't really look whether the user is locked or unlocked in the user side of Clarity. So the question is, you do not need additional licenses.
Excellent. So that killed two birds on that one. So John's asking, do the users need to expose the timesheets from Clarity, or are they directly accessible from SharePoint alone?
I'm not necessarily sure I understand the question, but I mean, so
why don't we do this, Federico? John, do you want to just maybe type another sentence or two, and I'll grab a question from the other forum here? Is that all right?
But meanwhile, I'll try and answer the question as best I can.
Okay.
Obviously, the resource has to be open for time entry. Track mode has to be set to Clarity for this particular component to work. So think of it, that you still, you would still need to be able to, as a manager, to be able to see that person's timesheet. So those same rules need to apply. The time period has to be open. The resource has to be open for time entry. The resource has to be assigned to a project and assigned to a task for it to show up in SharePoint.
Excellent. Let's see if that was John. He answered the question. Great. So it says, sorry if you've already covered this, but does the user have to be logged in? Okay, that's a double question. And I think you just answered, does the resource account need to be active? Did you answer that question in total?
Yeah, so there's two components in Clarity. There's resources and users. The resource itself does have to be active, so basically you need to be able to assign him to a project, but the user does not, so he does not need to log into Clarity.
Okay.
But he does need to be available for project managers to select him for a project.
Excellent. There's a question here going back to some of the things I said about executives earlier and directors. If they want to see the timesheet information, do they have to have access to Clarity? And that would be no, because that's been answered. But it also goes on to say, is it true they can no, that's actually the same question again. So we had that asked 3 times. Sorry about that. Is this a standalone product, Federico, or do you need the timesheetBoss base product to run this?
This particular product is a standalone product. You know, the timesheetBoss component is to actually do the linking between a project in Clarity and a SharePoint site and be able to do your task management. So the first little piece of the demo where I actually created the tasks and stuff, that would be a different component, but no, this is completely standalone, so you don't need either the timesheetBoss or CA's SharePoint connector for any of this to work.
You just answered the next question that came up on the SharePoint connector, Federico. So it looks like I'm just going to double check to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, at this point, Federico, we have gone through all of the questions that have been asked. And so if you could put up the contact slide, I'm going to go ahead and transition into our close, which is just about the right amount of time. One of the things that, you know, I obviously like to thank everybody for attending, and we had a morning session today, which a huge percentage of people got back to us, and we've already been in conversation with them. So if you need anything at all, if you just have a question, if you might have some ideas around what success would look like in your environment, then you want us to show other members of the team, people that work for you, people you work for, whatever, be more than happy to set that up for you. You can email me or call me. My number's right there, and we're available. So another thing is with the invite, we did send out the links to the recordings of the 2 previous webinars, but you can always go on to the site at ITROIsolutions.com and check that. And with that, Federico, again, thanks everybody for attending. And did I just see a question pop up? Well, you gotta like this. Very impressive, gentlemen. I like the first line in that question. Can potential users test their SharePoint in an IT-ROI sandbox?
If that's a question, I think that would be a question directed to you, Christopher. Yeah, I mean, we definitely do set up trial versions for clients. We do set up, you know, whether it be a SharePoint or SharePoint and Clarity for them to utilize. But yes, we do set up proof of concept for clients for all of our solutions.
Right, and
a lot of the times.
It's not as simple as just saying, hey, here you go. We do go through a process that includes interviewing and planning and success criteria, things of that nature. But certainly we do that. You know, actually, in many circumstances, for one of the things that comes to mind is compliance. One of the things, you know, that to test it ensures that because we're dealing with SharePoint, that it's not getting outside of security requirements, things like that. So certainly. Okay, Federico, precluding any other questions that pop in right now, it looks like that's all we have for today. Fed, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I wanted to thank everybody for attending. I do appreciate your time. And as Christopher mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, feel free to reach out to us if you're interested, if you wanted to see another demo or a personalized demo. We'd be glad to provide one for you or your team.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next time because we have some exciting stuff coming out in January, so stay tuned. Bye now.